And so it begins.
You said that you could make that deal before you take office. Do you still think you could make that deal?
I'm going to try.
Will you ask Putin to give up Assad?
Well, I hadn't thought of it. I think we have to get on with our lives. We'll have to see what happens. But
I guess it's not enough that the dude already won and we are forced to endure 4 years of plutocratic, anti-democratic oligarchy, and possibly more if we are to take the words from his far-right right hand seriously.
His third victory in his second term. And the Viceroy, Mike Davis, tells me, since it doesn't actually say consecutive, that, I don't know, maybe we do it again in 28.
But we still need to listen to him whine and complain about things that happened before the election and how he's threatening legal retribution to those who got polls wrong.
I'm doing this because I feel I have an obligation to. I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper, which had a very, very good pollster who got me right all the time. And then just before the election, she said I was going to lose by 3 or 4 points, and it became the biggest story all over the world. And that was the Des Moines Register, and we'll probably be filing a major lawsuit against them today or tomorrow.
In keeping with things that Americans really care about, Donald Trump announced in a train wreck press conference, which aired on Fox News, that he's planning a lawsuit against the Des Moines Register over its final election poll showing Trump running several points behind Vice President Kamala Harris in Iowa, a traditionally red state.
And that was the Des Moines Register, and it was their parent. And in my opinion, it was fraud, and it was election interference. You know, she's gotten me right always. She's a very good pollster. She knows what she was doing. And she then quit before. And we'll probably be filing a major lawsuit against them today or tomorrow.
But not only that, he also threatened to sue CBS 60 Minutes over what he claims to be a doctored interview with, at the time, presidential candidate Kamala Harris.
Harris said she was speaking in Phoenix, Arizona, and we actually do have some breaking news related to this. Former President Donald Trump is suing CBS News for $10 billion over what he is claiming was deceitful doctoring of an interview with Harris. Now, Fox News Digital obtained the affidavit exclusively today, and I have it right here to read to you. I did want to read you a part of this. I'm also just going to pull up some of this quote here. As you can see, it says, this action concerns CBS's partisan and unlawful acts of election and voter interference through malicious, deceptive, and substantial news distortion calculated to confuse, deceive, and mislead the public, and attempt to tip the scales in favor of the Democratic Party.
Now, here's the thing. Is anyone surprised that all he's focused on right now is gripes and grievances before he's even in the White House? Not to mention, this is after he won the election, like the worst winner and loser anybody has ever known.
We had that election. If it were an honorable election, we wouldn't have had any of the problems that we're talking about right now. Putin would have never got in.
You said that you could make that deal before you take office. Do you still think you could make that deal?
I'm going to try.
Will you ask Putin to give up Assad?
Well, I hadn't thought of it. I think we have to get on with our lives. We'll have to see what happens. But
because he's an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. Therefore, the high road isn't even an option as he navigates his way to the White House.
like out of nowhere came the China virus. Out of nowhere came other things we don't want to have. You know, when I left, we had no wars. We had no problems. The Middle East was good. We did the Abraham Accords. We did things that nobody thought were even possible. But think of it, 4 years ago, we had no wars. You didn't have Russia going into Ukraine. They wouldn't have done it. They weren't even thinking about it. When they saw what happened in Afghanistan, I think they gave them an idea, but they wouldn't have done it. They would have never gone. President Putin would have never gone in. And now you look at all those people are dead. All those cities are destroyed. You know, it's nice to say they want their land back, but the cities are largely destroyed. They've left Kiev because probably maybe they want to use it or occupy it, but they haven't done it. They've done a lot of damage, but relatively compared to the other cities, very.
And judging by those he's surrounding himself with, the yes men who have literally assembled lists of people they'll target when he gets in office, political retribution is firmly on the cards here.
I'm going to look at everything. We're going to look at individual cases, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to be acting very quickly.
Within your first 100 days, first day?
First day. For what they did,
Yeah.
honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think
I think
should
everybody,
go to jail.
anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
No, not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that.
Meanwhile, when asked about things that voters did say they cared about, the economy, the tariffs that countless economists continue to claim will tank the economy, he himself is already moving the goalposts and downplaying it.
Are you concerned that tariffs might hurt the stock market rise that you have seen and the economy more broadly?
Make our country rich. Tariffs will make our country rich.
But won't they raise prices?
Properly used. I didn't have any inflation, and I had massive tariffs on a lot of things. We put tariffs on steel. If I didn't put tariffs on steel, 50% and more, they were dumping steel in, China and others. I put tariffs on, and it stopped, and we took a fortune. We made a fortune on it. Tariffs, properly used, which we will do, and being reciprocal with other nations, but it'll make our country rich. Our country right now loses to everybody. Almost nobody do we have a surplus with. There are a couple of countries, and they're embarrassed by it, but almost nobody. And tariffs will make, I always said, to me, tariffs, the most beautiful word in the dictionary.
I want to delve into one of your signature promises on the campaign trail, which was to end inflation, to lower prices. You are now proposing tariffs against the United States' three biggest trading partners. Economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price of tariffs.
I don't believe
Can
it.
you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow.
Saying in a Time magazine interview it's hard to get prices to come down, despite claiming countless times on the campaign trail that he could get prices to go down and would if he was to get elected.
We will end inflation and make America affordable again. We're going to get the prices down. We have to get them down. It's too much. Groceries, cars, everything. We're going to get the prices down. But prices will come down. You just watch. They'll come down, and they'll come down fast, not only with insurance, with everything. Tomorrow, I will end inflation. We will cut your taxes, end inflation, slash your prices. I will end inflation. End inflation. Slash your prices. To rapidly reduce inflation, I will end inflation very quickly. End inflation. Slash your prices. We will cut your taxes, end inflation, slash your prices. We're going to get your prices down.
He has no intention of focusing on the issues that voters allegedly cared about when they cast their ballot. Yeah, it's funny how the economy was so bad until after the election, and then suddenly, boom, we have record-breaking Black Friday sales.
The president's inheriting a very good economy, a very stable economy. We have real solid economic growth. We have real job growth. We have real wage growth. And I think some of the wage growth that we're seeing, we've seen a lot of these union contracts be renegotiated in the second half of this year. Mm-hmm. Those wages feed through the economy. They feed through as inflation. So the economy that the president's inheriting is quite strong. I think it will continue to stay quite strong.
Rest assured, he spent most of the time during this press conference focusing on more issues that Americans just couldn't care less about or vehemently oppose, like the targeting of vaccines, which will make kids less safe. Well, don't worry, Donald Trump wants you to know that Captain Brainworm at the helm has it under control.
Can I follow up on Robert Kennedy? He's on the Hill today. He's meeting with senators. What do you say to people who are worried that his views on vaccines will translate into policies that will make their kids less safe?
No, I think he's going to be much less radical than you would think. I think he's got a very open mind, or I wouldn't have put him there. He's going to be very much less radical. But there are problems. I mean, we don't do as well as a lot of other nations, and those nations use nothing.
I rise today to call our colleagues in the Senate to reject Donald Trump's nomination of RFK Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services. Now, RFK has proven himself for decades to be a conspiracy theorist, and we cannot allow the critical work by the HHS and the doctors, the medical professionals there, to be undermined by someone with his record. Now, for those not familiar, RFK Jr. first has no scientific or medical credentials. Instead, he spent his career fueling anti-vaccine movements around the world, including one in Samoa that contributed to a measles outbreak that killed dozens of people and made almost 6,000 sick, most of them children and infants. Now, RFK Jr. has falsely claimed that vaccines cause autism and suggested that COVID health measures were worse than the Holocaust. He's also peddled in conspiracy theories that chemicals in water are making children transgender and gay. Now, this is someone who has threatened to gut the National Institutes of Health, the federal agency responsible for medical and public health research. Now, they, along with the rest of HHS, do vital, nonpartisan work that impacts every American in every community. From pandemic preparedness to cancer research to resources for mental health and substance abuse. There are real lives at stake. We just went through a pandemic that cost the lives of 1.3 million Americans, the single largest loss of life event in the modern era in our country and around the world. And we cannot allow at this moment to hand over the keys of public health to an extreme and unqualified and dangerous nominee. The Senate must reject RFK Jr. for HHS.
And then it was over to the pardoning of January 6th insurrectionists, another thing that voters have claimed they simply oppose and are against Donald Trump doing when he gets in office. But he wants those very voters who likely voted for him to know he's going to pardon them on day one.
For January 6th defendants, you had said in the first few minutes of your administration you want to issue pardons for January 6th defendants. Yeah. Does that include, will that be a blanket pardon? Does that include
Well, you'll find
everyone?
out, but it's going to go quickly.
In a word, they think it's a terrible idea. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Pardoning for the January 6th protesters. Oppose it. 64%. About 2/3 of Americans oppose it. Just 30% favor it. And more than that, this Ipsos poll asked, should he prioritize it to be like the first thing he does when he gets into office? Just 1% say it should be Trump's top priority. So in a word, it's a terrible, terrible idea. I guess that's 2 words, and then idea is a 3rd word in there for Trump to pardon the January 6th protesters. Even among Republicans, it's only a slight majority. Of course, usually Trump gets, 80, 90% among Republicans. In this case, he's getting less than 60% on the idea of pardoning the January 6th protesters.
It's the same old playbook. Trump first, Trump last, Trump always.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.